I don't know how big it is. I saw an analyst report say total handle, which is how much people wager on World Cup, will be something like $1.5 billion, which would be a lot more than we've seen in other years. So I think there's this opportunity where it's going to get big. It's still not going to be as big as these other sports, but window in the summer here is very slow for the sports calendar, right? We have baseball, basketball, and hockey. They're starting their playoffs right now, and they'll be over by July. So yeah, there's this vacuum of things to watch and to bet on. And I think this moment in time, we'll see a lot more betting on World Cup.
It's no exaggeration to say that in recent years, gambling in America has absolutely skyrocketed. To be specific, that all really happened in 2018 when a ban on sports betting was repealed. Since 2018, it's estimated that $500 billion have been spent on sports betting legally. And in 2025, 10% of American adults engaged in online sports betting. It's something I never really questioned because growing up in the UK, sports betting was just always a thing. Sports betting shops or bookies were on every high street corner. But you can't really ignore the downsides in that since 2018, reportedly, national gambling helplines have received 23% more incoming calls. Now, to add to that, in the past year or so, these new things called prediction markets have sprung up in the form of companies like Kalshi and Polymarket. Now, those are differently regulated or unregulated by the federal government rather than state governments because they're seen as trading. You're trading shares with other users on the likelihood of future events to occur. And those are everything from sports to politics, elections. If you go on Kalshi right now, you can bet on things like whether there will be hurricanes this summer or whether Palestine will be recognized as a state. And so it's thrown up a lot more concerns besides gambling addiction, including why are we being allowed to bet on human suffering? But they've been allowed to really blow up in the last year or so. And that paves the way for a globally very attractive gambling event, the World Cup. I wanted to find out how relevant both these sports betting websites, but more importantly, these prediction markets will be as the World Cup comes to town. Unsurprisingly, FIFA has already tried to get in on the act. It has set up its own prediction market in tandem with a brand new platform with a lot of political connections, which we'll get into. I wanted to find out about all this, and so I spoke to Dustin Gauker, who is a former journalist. Well, he is a journalist. He runs 2 Substacks on betting and prediction markets. He's also a consultant for betting companies. I won't give too much more away. I'll let him explain. And so here's my interview with Dustin Gauker. Dustin, thanks for being here. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. My name's Dustin Gauker. I'm a longtime journalist. Currently, I publish a couple of newsletters, one on the prediction markets industry called The Event Horizon, and another one mostly on the U.S. online gambling industry called The Closing Line. I've been a journalist for most of my career. I worked at my newspaper in my local hometown back in Pennsylvania. I ran my college paper. I worked at the Washington Post out of school. I covered the rise of daily fantasy sports here in the U.S., DraftKings and FanDuel about a decade ago as they were getting big, and then the legalization of online sports betting here in the United States that came after a Supreme Court decision. And then I was part of a startup, got acquired, got up to VP level of that, writing a pretty big content operation. And then a couple years ago, I quit, decided to go out on my own, do some consulting, started these newsletters just to try to get some top of funnel for that consulting. And then at some point, the newsletters themselves became the product. And I do 2 of them that are pretty well read, at least in the niches that I cover.
Awesome. Yeah. The first thing I think about when I think about sports betting is that, I grew up in the UK, so it was always around me. The bookies was just, a thing that I was just so used to. And it was odd coming here before 2018 and they basically didn't exist. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about that decision in 2018 and why they've kind of proliferated since then?
Yeah, I mean the big deal is it was basically only legal in Nevada, right? There's grandfathered in. There was a law passed in the 1990s called the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act that bans sports betting pretty much outside of Nevada. A few other places had limited forms of sports betting. So basically, you had to go to Vegas and you had to go to a casino with a sports book to go bet on sports. Now you could go offshore and bet online, but it was not legal in any kind of material way outside of Nevada. Then this court case happened where the sports leagues were suing New Jersey, which is trying to legalize sports betting. They had passed a law, and the leagues were arguing, look, this is illegal under the PASPA, this federal law. And so there's this drawn out court fight for I think like 7 years. It took eventually got to the Supreme Court here in the United States. New Jersey won the case, and that meant that the federal ban was done, that states could legalize sports betting if they wanted to. And then we saw this explosion over the past 7 years of states doing just that, legalizing sports betting and oftentimes online sports betting. So that's why we've had this shift that, not every state has legal sports betting, but a lot of them do. Notably, California and Texas, the two biggest states, do not have legal sports betting, but Florida, New York, and a lot, and dozens of other states have some form of sports betting, whether it's physical in-person sports betting or also online sports betting.
More recently, we've seen the emergence of these prediction markets, right? Like Kalshi and Poly market. Can you break down just quite simply how they differ from the kind of regular sports betting?
Yeah, a couple things. One, they're legal federally right now, although there's a lot of court cases about whether it's legal or not. But they are arguing that they're legal under federal law, under the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which is a regulator that oversees commodities and derivatives. They also offer this as an exchange, right? In the UK, for anybody who's familiar with sports betting, you would know Betfair, which is an exchange, not that's different from sportsbooks in that at a sportsbook, FanDuel, DraftKings, Bet365, you are betting against the house. You go onto the app, you place a bet, you're betting against the company on the other side, right? If you win, they lose. If they lose, and vice versa, right? Same as at a bookie shop or whatever in across the UK. You're betting against the house. At a prediction market, you are betting against other people. Now, sometimes those people are entities that are just as, or if not more so, sophisticated than the house, right? They are market makers that this is what they do. They provide liquidity and they're trying to win money from, retail users. But the platform is an exchange where Kalshi and Polymarket don't care whether you win or lose. They take money on fees and they are, putting people together. You and me, we want to place a bet. They find another person or another entity that wants to take the other side of that bet, and they let you bet on whatever you want. So those are the core differences. And again, go back to the sports books. They're legal under state laws, and this is part of the legal battle going on. States have said, "What are you doing? You can't offer sports betting here." We said it's illegal. Kalshi and other prediction markets, and again, the CFTC said this is legal here under federal law. Federal law preempts state law, and that you can do this. And so now we have basically sports betting in all 50 states now.
Why do they claim that their model is better than the sports betting model? Do you buy that?
I mean, it is better in some ways. It's not always what the end user wants. A lot of users obviously want recreational sports books that have kind of gotten really big here in the last 7 years. They want to bet at FanDuel and DraftKings. They have a better user experience. They are able to offer things that exchanges don't. But at the same time, there's a real reason for exchanges to exist. There are people who are limited by sports books because they're too good at sports betting, and then they can't bet on sports. At a prediction market, you can't be limited. It's you can take and make as many markets as you want, as long as there's a buyer or a seller on the other side. You can do whatever you want. So from that standpoint, it's good, right? Although there's it's an infinitesimally small number of people who are actually limited by sports books. This gets blown up more than it is. Like there's not that many people who are so good at sports betting that they get banned. This is a relatively small cohort of people who are betting in the United States and really anywhere in the world. But it does exist, and that part is democratization, and this idea that you can do this on an exchange, that it's not done against the house. There's merit to that. It still doesn't mean that the average person is still going to lose, right? If you or me, I'm like not a sophisticated sports bettor, I'm going to lose over the long term. I might get lucky once in a while and hit a few bets, but there's that. It does matter, and it's this democratization of trading and sports betting. Sure, it exists, but the core activity for most people is still gambling, right? That's what I always come back to is, if you and I want to put a bet on an MLS game, we are doing so, we understand that's not a trade, right? You want one team and I want another team. I put $5 up, you put $5 up. The same dynamic is happening at a prediction market. You say, I want to bet on this team. somebody wants to bet on the other team, and it lets you bet. But we understand that to be gambling, right? This is not just it's not like trading like everything else. I mean, it is. It's a trade, but the underlying activity is betting, gambling, whatever you want to call it. And I think most people understand that, but right now it's legally, federally, quote unquote, not sports betting.
I think it's worth saying for people who might not know that, you can bet on a whole range of things, not just sports, things like politics and elections. And I think that CNN has a partnership with Kalshi, is it? It seems like these things are really, really blowing up. Are they maybe more popular than you thought they might be?
I mean, from the sports angle, like when all this started getting going about a little more than a year ago, like people like to bet on sports. That's why I started the newsletter, because crypto.com first, then Kalshi started offering sports betting via regulated exchanges. I'm like, okay, if this is allowed, this is going to get very big. And to wit, like Kalshi is like 85-90% sports betting right now. It is sports event contracts, things related to that. Everything else is pretty small. Cryptocurrency trading is getting bigger, but yes, you can bet on elections. Presumably it'll be big for the midterms here in the United States. It'll be big in the 2028 election cycle. And it's a little bit more everything else at Polymarket, which is this international site that is technically not legal in the United States, but it also offers all of these things kind of around the world and a lot of countries across the globe. So it's gotten, it's gotten big. Like there are billions of dollars traded on these exchanges every week, and it's a lot of sports, but it is a lot of all these other things. Betting on elections doesn't surprise me, and the question is whether all this other stuff gets to scale, whether people betting on the non-sports stuff here in the United States, whether outside of elections and sports betting, does it get really big? That's an open question, I think, as we sit here. The idea is that it will get there, that there'll be institutional adoption, and we'll get a lot more people trading on all these other things. But people like to bet on things. I think that's the core thing, the core part of all this. It's not surprising that people like to bet. The speed of all of it is what surprises people, right? Because this is not a thing we were talking about anybody was aware of in early 2025, and the market has grown from tens of millions, hundreds of millions being traded every month to I think Kalshi is doing $10 billion in volume every month. Polymarket doing a little less than that. And, these have become huge businesses, and both of them are valued, like Kalshi is valued at 22 billion. Polymarket at the latest valuation, 9 billion, I believe. So gotten big really fast, lots of interest, and these high valuations behind these companies have kind of pointed to how big this industry is getting really quickly.
There are downsides to some of these things, and the biggest ones, if I were to maybe list some of them, are just the kind of eternal gambling addiction worry, issues with being able to fix or manipulate things when people are betting on less sportsy things, and then this idea I think that you've talked about in your newsletter of macabre betting, right, where there are bets on things like the Iran war and Gaza and climate change. And if that sounds like a South Park episode, it's because there was a South Park episode about it, right? So what do you make of those downsides, and are any of them more worrisome to you than others?
I think they're all worrisome on the spectrum, right? To varying degrees. Like, again, I come from the gambling industry. I don't actually have a problem with prediction markets existing. Like, I kind of think they're awesome, but the problem is how and why they've come about. Is that, overnight we decided that, okay, now we're doing sports betting in all 50 states, and that, like, people say this is a serious policy decision. It was not. It was done because of a change in administration here, like the way the executive branch in the United States works. Like the CFTC, this regulator of this, was not allowing any of this prior to the Trump administration. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I guess we can do this now, which is not, like, we just kind of backed into it, right? Nobody sat down and said, oh, we're going to have sports betting in all 50 states and this is how it should work. And it's not considered a gambling product. Again, this is the problem, is that the legal basis is that it's not gambling. And so it's not being treated by the regulator or by a lot of the operators as a gambling product. Kalshi, to its credit, does have responsible trading tools. It rolled out this self-exclusion program that allows people to self-exclude from being able to bet or trade across multiple platforms. These are all good things, but none of that is happening at every single operator, and it's not mandated by law. This is just because Kalshi decided we should do this because it's a good idea, and so that we get less blowback for being this legal gambling platform that's not technically gambling. So, like, that part of it is concerning to me. Hopefully we get more rules and regulations, and we think about gambling and the expansion that we've seen. This is the biggest expansion of gambling ever in the United States. Even though we talked about PASPA and this rollout of state regulated sports betting, this has arguably been bigger and faster than that. So there's that. Insider trading, 100%. Federally regulated exchanges, you are there are know your customer protocols. Like Kalshi should know, and all these other prediction markets should know and do know who you are when you bet. And it should be able to stop some of that, but it's an imperfect solution. Right? If you have inside information, you tell somebody else, are you going to be able to track that down? It's going to be hard. If there are huge bets, yes, it can be flagged, but there's still tons of concerns and knock-on effects, both in the federally regulated and the international unregulated space with Polymarket. And yeah, the death war markets are the one that it feels like it gets the most blowback of everything, right? This Polymarket takes these. Kalshi and other regulated ones do not take trades on like, will the U.S. strike Iran, or will there be a ceasefire? These geopolitical events are right for insider trading, right? Like, because somebody knows the answer to these things before it happens, right? And you can either pass that information on or use it to trade yourself. And yeah, the idea, should we be betting on this at all? There is value in the information you get from geopolitical events and war and all of that. Like Polymarket put up a market very briefly about your US pilot shot down in Iran, and there's a market of, would the pilots be rescued? And of course the flip side of that is, if you're betting no, you're betting that they might be dead or will be killed, right? That is, no matter what the information you're getting out of it, like you and I and most normal people are like, why are we betting on this? Why can you bet on the death of people? If you step back and you listen to the prediction markets evangelists, there are reasons for these markets to exist about war. Like in Iran, you're listening to state media. Can you go on a prediction market then actually learn, what are the odds we're going to be in war? Like, what is going on outside of the world? And what does the market tell us about this? Will the Strait of Hormuz be open or closed? Like, these are interesting things. But yeah, the second order effect of that is, you can be betting on death. You can be betting on war. And should we be doing that? The answer from a lot of people is no.
And just a quick point on all that in terms of insider trading and stuff. Am I right in saying that Donald Trump Jr. is an advisor or on the board of both Kalshi and Polymarket?
He is involved with both, when those are the two biggest companies by far. They dominate the market. And yes, and we've seen, again, it's not overstating it, like under the Biden administration, this was not happening. Like the Biden administration, CFTC was actually suing Kalshi to stop them from allowing betting on the elections. Now, Kalshi actually won that on appeal in October of 2024, and then off to the races they went. But there's no way in any prior administration of the past like 25 years was anybody saying, oh, you can bet on sports using prediction markets, or 15 years, I think, is when the law actually passed. It's just gotten so big so fast. And it's because of this laissez-faire attitude that the CFTC had, and now is moving toward like actually being a cheerleader. The regulator, the chairman of the CFTC, Michael Selig, is now, as part of the Trump administration, has been made it very clear that he wants prediction markets to exist and he wants to help them succeed. And that's a huge change in dynamic, and is part of why there's a bull case for these prediction markets existing beyond not just getting bashed down in the courts.
So let's talk a little bit about World Cup then. So in your email, you said that World Cup has traditionally not really been a big source of betting in the US, but that might change this year. Is that because the US hosting in soccer is growing, or is it because of the proliferation of all this stuff we've been talking about?
The answer is yes to all of that. And yeah, World Cup is obviously like internationally and the rest of the world, this is the biggest betting event. There's nothing close to this. They're like, soccer, sorry, I'm trying not to use soccer. Football is the number one sport in the world, right? This is like, countries all over the world play this and are passionate about it. There are international leagues all over the place. This is a huge, the World Cup is literally the biggest betting event of the year when you put it all together, and like the interest in it, and the UK especially, obviously everyone there is attuned to betting and attuned to football. So let's start there. In the last 7 years of regulated sports betting, football and World Cup have not been big, for sure. It's probably a rounding error, like a little more than a rounding error in terms of how much is bet and how much revenue is generated by state regulated sports books. It's just small. It's just not that popular. This is like, of all the sports, it's like, here we have NFL, we have NBA, and we have Major League Baseball. Those are kind of the three biggest sports. Golf is big here. The Masters is like, the majors are big, but like, these are the things that people in the US usually bet on. And World Cup has been a little less than that. And I think the idea is that this is being held here, and this is like a huge opportunity for football to get bigger here in the United States, and for betting on it to be even bigger, and for sportsbooks to acquire customers. And then, yes, of course, prediction markets allowing people to trade or bet on this in all 50 states. This is a huge opportunity for them as well. And, United States, internally, everybody always has high hopes that we're going to make it out of group and get past the quarterfinals. Who knows? But if that happens, then there's going to be even more interest in it, right? So yeah, like, I don't know how big it is. I saw an analyst report say total handle, which is how much people wager on the World Cup, will be something like $1.5 billion, which would be a lot more than we've seen in other years for the World Cup. So I think there's this opportunity where it's going to get big. It's still not going to be as big as these other sports, but in a window in the summer here is very slow for the sports calendar, right? We have baseball, basketball, and hockey will be in their playoff. They're starting their playoffs right now, and they'll be over by July. So yeah, there's this vacuum of things to watch and to bet on, and I think this moment in time we'll see a lot more betting on World Cup.
Seems like FIFA has really gotten into this. I'm separately doing a story on the kind of astronomical ticket prices, and it feels like the US and its economic system has set the foundation for FIFA to be able to do what they're doing. And this feels like a similar thing, right? It's hard to think like a World Cup in Spain or Germany would entice FIFA in the same way to get involved in something like this. So FIFA has launched its prediction market platform, which is a bit of an unknown. Is that right?
Yeah, ADI Predict Street is the partner, and it's a very weird story when you break it down. Like when the announcement dropped, I saw something on like Instagram, and I'm like, "What? Is this actually real?" Because if you think FIFA is going to do a deal, you'd think it would be with one of the two big partners, right? Especially one that's regulated in the United States, or Polymarket, which is the big one internationally. So it was extremely strange to me that this comes out and it's neither of those. There are others like pretty serious prediction markets that are not as big that could have also been natural partnerships or landing spots for this. So when the story broke, I'm like, and there's a press release, I'm like, that's interesting. And like, because the thing hasn't even launched, it's not technically legal in the United States, although it's like right now I think is it only legal in Gibraltar? Like it's such a weird story. Like there's connections to the royal family, right? The whole thing doesn't make sense. Sorry, the royal family, I think in UAE, not in Britain. Yes, it makes sense for FIFA to get involved in it, but at the same time, it's like, this is like the weirdest possible way for them to get into prediction markets. Like you should definitely partner with Kalshi if they were serious about this and like getting prediction markets to be bigger in the United States and for activity to happen on it. You would partner with Kalshi 100%, or arguably crypto.com, which is probably the second biggest operator, but they didn't. And it's weird because these leagues here have partnered with Polymarket and Kalshi, right? Major League Baseball, National Hockey League, Major League Soccer. These are all UFC even has done a deal with Polymarket. These make sense. This one, I don't understand it. I'm sure there's going to be way more reporting on it. Maybe by you, that's going to uncovers more about why this deal happened, but it's super weird, super sketchy to me. I guess a lot of people would like, I'm not as into football and FIFA as you and some of your audience, but like it's a head scratcher and it raises eyebrows, and I'll be curious to see what else comes out this, because it feels like it's not something that's going to succeed, right? It's a very strange deal. As soon as I saw it, I was like, this smells weird.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the site is live as of April 10th, but you can't do anything on it. It's just for show at the moment. And a couple of other notes that I got from, there's a good article from Front Office Sports that kind of dove into it. And this whole idea of you can't mix sports and politics is completely crazy, because the founder of ADI Predict Street is part of the Abu Dhabi royal family. It's like the brother of the guy who owns Man City, and he was involved in the Gaza discussions with Jared Kushner. The whole thing is, I mean, and it runs on blockchain, I think, as well. So the whole thing is a mystery, really. But how long does it take for these kinds of platforms to get approval from the CFTC? Because what's the point if US consumers can't use it before June?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to get a CFTC approval. This is going to be outside. This is going to be offshore. Whether they even take US users, I kind of doubt they will, because it's going to be, it's offshore. It's not technically legal. Again, Polymarket is quote unquote illegal in the United States, but the international site absolutely takes US customers. You can use a VPN and crypto and you can use it. There's also a Polymarket US regulated app that is separate from that international site. Anyway, this is not going to be in the US as a regulated entity before World Cup. Even if they applied, which they haven't, it would still be a process of months, if not more than a year, to do that. So yeah, that's the part. Like if you're really using this to drive engagement around the World Cup, you would do it Kalshi, which is the by far like 90% of activity in the US on regulated exchanges happening at Kalshi. Or you would do it at Polymarket, which is this international site. It's not legal in every country. It's considered gambling in a lot of countries, but it's legal in a lot of places, or at least operates in a lot of countries without being said, you can't do this here. You would partner with them. The idea that this is not being done to drive engagement, right, with the World Cup. It is being done for some other reason, which is some of the reasons probably you just mentioned.
Yeah, and if we can't get any more skeptical about it, they're doing things. FIFA's saying that like you can win World Cup tickets by using the site and getting things right. So anyway, how do you see this going? I mean, do you think that this could, maybe not for this World Cup, but become a thing for tournaments in the future? Or do you think that political change in the midterms or in 2028 is going to fundamentally change the way these things are going?
I mean, prediction markets are here in the US. They're not going away entirely. It's a matter of what they do and how they operate. There's lots of political and legal concerns for prediction markets. Like, depending on who you ask, they're very serious to de minimis, but like right now they're legal. They're legal in 50 states. I think right now they're technically not in Nevada because of an ongoing court case and a restraining order or an injunction. There's dozens of court cases about the legality of this where Kalshi is suing states or the CFTC is suing states or a state is suing Kalshi to say this is illegal gambling, can't do it here. Ultimately, that's going to get to the Supreme Court. We're going to be back where we were with legal sports betting 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and there's going to be a decision on whether this is legal or not. What the outcome of that is, anybody thinks they know that for sure is full of it. Like I say it's a coin flip. You could price that either way you want and say that prediction markets are a favorite or that it's going to stop. And this is mostly about sports event contracts and not the other stuff, right? This is, again, most of what states and people are concerned about is betting on sports. This is something that is being regulated with laws. There are taxes that are being generated from legal sports betting that are being usurped by prediction markets. So this battle is going to go on. We're going to get a decision, and who knows? Political concerns. Congress has been talking about this in recent months in a way they weren't before. There's a bunch of bills about insider trading and like stopping certain types of betting and trading, including sports event contracts. Will Congress pass a bill? Probably not, but it's a non-zero chance. And then, regime change, administration change in 2028. If a Democrat wins, Democrats hold all the levers of government in 2028, we have an election here, there's a chance the genie gets put back in the bottle through all of that. Because maybe with some exceptions, a Democrat would probably want to put some of this back in the bottle. Most of the opposition has been from Democrats, although we've seen Republicans also be against this. So who knows? I don't know where it's going to go. It's not going away entirely. Will you be able to bet on the 2030 World Cup at prediction markets? Open question. It's crazy to do. I do podcasts and I talk about this stuff with a lot of people, and like it melts people's brains. Like we just have gambling everywhere now, right? Like before the early 20th century, like it was basically you had to go to Las Vegas, right, to gamble on anything. And we've had this creep in the United States and really a lot of places of like you can gamble more and more. You can gamble in the last couple decades, you gamble more and more online, right? And this is kind of the natural extension of this. And where it's all going, like I'm a libertarian, people should be able to gamble if they want, but at some point maybe there's too much of a quote unquote good thing. I don't know. Like prediction markets feel a little aggressive to me. Again, I don't have a problem with them existing. I just want them to be treated like gambling. And if you're going to gamble on the World Cup, understand you're gambling. You're probably going to lose. Maybe you'll win. Hopefully you win if you gamble, but most of the time you're going to lose.
Especially those parlays.
Yeah, the parlays, which are ACCAs over in the UK, parlays in the US have gotten they're the main way people bet on sports now here in the United States. Crazy enough, like it used to be, you used to go to a sports book, you'd bet on the money line, you bet on a point spread, and now it's like online apps make it so easy to put a bunch of take events, props, but different games and put them into one bet, and you bet $1 to win hundreds, thousands, maybe, but you're almost always going to lose those. But it's a lottery ticket, and people like to dream.
I mean, for you, does it enhance the game for you? Does it ruin the kind of just being in the moment?
People give me crap for this. I don't bet a lot. Like at times over the past 7 years I have. Sometimes it's fun and sometimes I take a break from it. I don't need it. But the reason it exists is part of that. If you look at it as entertainment, like I have something riding on this game. Like that's interesting, right? Everybody likes to gamble. Everybody likes to win money. Again, most of us understand we're going to lose most of the time, no matter what the gambling is, whether it's a lottery or we go to a casino to play blackjack or a slot machine. Most of the time we're going to lose money. Sports is the same way. If you look at it as, oh, I'm doing this for fun and I don't expect to win, it would be cool if I won, but I'm not expecting to win. Yeah, great. It's good for that. And when I'm betting, football season, I'm betting a little bit. I'm not betting a whole lot. I bet a little on the Masters. I'm not some huge bettor. I'm probably actually the average retail customer, the average casual bettor who sometimes bets, sometimes doesn't, and it's not something that I do all the time. I do it when I think it's fun and I'm watching a game and I feel like I want to bet on it. I don't also have to watch sports with a bet on it to make it enjoyable.
And I think you probably answered this already with saying you're a libertarian, but I was going to ask, what's the rationale for these things existing versus just not, and not having all these issues and harms that come with it?
I think the reason is there's valuable information that comes from prediction markets. Like we've talked more about the gambling and the sports aspect here, obviously, but like there's value coming out of prediction markets in terms of giving us probabilities of things happening. That's to me the promise of prediction markets. Like yes, people are gambling a lot of times, but the everything else is really interesting. Elections, economic events, other things in government, the weather, even prices on real estate. These are things that are the probabilities of events happening is really interesting data. Polymarket and Kalshi like to exaggerate and say we're truth machines. We're telling you the news in advance, which is BS. It's not true. But they are giving you probabilities of things happening in real time. And sometimes those things are hard to price in real time. Again, elections, and the ones I like to talk about the most are control of government, like who's going to win the House and the Senate in the United States. Like prediction markets answer that question. They give us a probability of who's going to control the government, which is super interesting data, super valuable data. We've had government shutdowns here. Will the government shut down? That's a super interesting thing to put a price on. I think the other stuff is very interesting, and that's the part that prediction markets were built on, that promise of the commoditization and the information we get from markets and events. Like that's super interesting to me.
Just one thing on that. Why on the election stuff, why is it better than polling? Or why do they say it's better than polling?
Well, polling is a big input in the prediction markets, right? Prediction markets without polling would arguably be really difficult to know. But polling isn't perfect, and polling isn't the entire story, right? Super interesting example just happened. There's a scandal in the U.S. about the people running for governor in California, Representative Eric Swalwell. The big report came out. He dropped out of the race. He resigned from that. I believe he resigned from the House as well now. Like there's not a poll to tell us like what's happening in that race, right? He was the favorite to win the race by both polls and by prediction markets. And then prediction markets like instantly decide, oh, he's done. His odds drop to nothing. And then we have a new favorite. That's interesting data to have because a poll, I'm guessing somebody has run a poll by now to see who the new favorite is, but like that's not a perfect information. And it's like the data trails. A market tells us in real time not who's going to win, but the probability of who's going to win. Who is the favorite now? And again, these bigger ideas like polls can only do so much, right? And like we can't poll every single House race, and the quality of those polls is of questionable value. As you know, there's hundreds of races across the country. Like, can polls actually capture all that? Markets do that in a way that polls can't. So polls are good. Polls need to exist. Polls are valuable data, but they're one input into prediction markets, which aggregate a bunch of data and a bunch of sentiment around elections and gives us probabilities of things happening. And I don't think there's a problem with that. Other than some people are just gambling on it. Like some people are totally speculating and are going to lose money because they think they're good at it. That's a problem. But again, the core information, the core value of it is more than just gambling.